Solar Idealism is a mythically oriented philosophy for men that I created because I believe that men today are hungry for a source of meaning, identity, and purpose. The men I'm talking to want to be inspired by the past, but they aren't foolish enough to think that they can recreate it. And they don't want to be confined by it. There are a lot of men who want myth in their lives, but they don't want to abandon reason. They don't want to lie to themselves. They're looking for something that is fundamentally and unapologetically masculine, but also something bright and thoughtful and inspiring. Something solar. This video was meant to be an introduction to solar idealism. If you watch it the whole way through to the end, you should have a pretty good idea of what solar idealism is and whether or not it makes sense to you.
Meaning, identity, and purpose.
Men today are desperate for meaning. We all feel it. It feels like the world around us is falling apart. What is good anymore? What is right? What is beautiful? What is sacred? There are so many competing values. Nothing really feels solid. So men are lost and disoriented. You see them reaching out, trying to grab something, grab any kind of anchor or axis, any kind of identity that helps them make sense of the world. Men are looking for something that gives them a sense of purpose and direction. They want their lives to be about something. And I've watched them try to make their lives about all kinds of things, whether it's race or politics, or having sex with a lot of women, or making a lot of money. There are a lot of men out there who think that we need to return to the past or go back to the past, as if that were even possible. And I've watched them try to find themselves in all kinds of dead and dying religions. I've done it myself. Religions that were meant for different people in different places at different times. I've watched these men try to convince themselves of things that I don't think most of them ever really believed. You see, the thing is that you can never go back. You can't recreate the past. You can only go forward. And the future belongs to those who have an inspiring vision for it. All of these old things, these old traditions and religions, they had to start somewhere. At some point, they were part of someone else's vision. Some guys broke away from one thing and went and started their own thing, based on their own perspectives and rooted in their own time and place. They decided for themselves what they thought was good and meaningful and beautiful and right. Well, I think it's time to do that again. And that's why I created Solar Idealism and my men's group, the Order of Fire. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over some of the basics of what solar idealism is, so you can get a handle on it. And if you like what I have to say and you think it's reasonable, maybe even inspiring, then by all means, go and read my book, Fire in the Dark. And if you like that and you watch some of these videos and see some of the guys, we have a lot of interesting guys in the Order of Fire. I'm really proud of that. If you like what you see, then I encourage you to apply to join the Order of Fire.
We live in exciting times.
Today, men are wandering through the ruins of exhausted cultures. Old religions and collective identities are collapsing all around us. In part, that's because they can't survive the age of information. They were created in isolation. The majority of men in history never traveled farther than they could see from the top of the nearest hill or mountain. They lived with the same people and shared the same collective truth. They didn't have many books, and most could barely read. And their sense of history and the history of ideas was limited by stories that were passed down to them. It's almost impossible to live in a world like that today. We live in a time when the poorest among us have access to more information about different religions and philosophies and ways of living than anyone has ever had. We can look out over the stories of every recorded group of people and ponder the remains of men who left only structures and artifacts. We can see how one religion changed into another, and how one philosophy of life influenced another. We can see how people migrated from place to place and mixed with other people. How one word became another word, and one language became another language. We don't know everything about history, and we never will. We'll never have all the facts. But based on what we do know, all of this information we've access to, it seems crazy. It seems almost willfully ignorant, intentionally self-deceptive, to try to believe that one people, at one place, at one time, had it all figured out. That they had all the right answers. That their book was the only book that mattered. That their pantheon of gods were the only gods that were real. That their one God was the only God that really matters. That their way of life was the best way of life for everyone forever. That seems insane to me. That kind of choice seems arbitrary, opportunistic, convenient, or almost entirely aesthetic. This seems to be the case to me whether we are talking about one of the major monotheistic religions or about one of the many reconstructed pagan religions that claim to be based on traditions which have, for the most part, been lost to history. All of this is very confusing, but also very exciting. We live in exciting times. I believe that now is the time for new beginnings. We have the opportunity right now to become the intentional creators of a new culture and new traditions.
What Solar Idealists believe.
When I wrote The Way of Men, I looked at men throughout history and all around the world. And whereas others seem to focus on the differences between groups of men, I decided to focus on what men all around the world have in common. What are the common themes and what are the common realities that they face together? And when I went to write Fire in the Dark, I did the exact same thing, but instead I looked at what are their gods and their myths and their heroes, what are their ideals, and what do those have in common? I looked at the myths and philosophies of men all around the world, and I looked for commonalities, overlapping ideas, repeated themes. I was looking for the forest, not the trees. I was looking for simple, basic principles. And there is one thing that has been a constant, one thing that's been high above us for the entire history of our species. The sun. The sun provides light and warmth and life-giving energy to everyone and everything around it. And that light has made perception and understanding possible. It is an ordering force, pulling things into its orbit. And I think that we can all agree that the sun is good. Fire. When man creates fire, it is his approximation of the sun. Men have been building campfires all around the world since prehistoric times. If you think about what a fire does, it essentially does what the sun does. It creates light and warmth. It makes people and objects visible and identifiable. A fire creates a natural perimeter of light, a known controlled space in the midst of a dark, unknown, possibly dangerous, uncontrolled space. And if you've ever watched people around a campfire, they orbit it and gravitate towards it. It becomes the temporary axis of their world. So to us, fire represents man's attempt to order his world. A fire is man's own little sun at human scale. Idealism. Solar idealists believe that men are animals, creatures of flesh and blood, born of the earth. And it's important to remember that, because we want to be able to embrace life and embrace the physicality of being. Now, we don't want to become what Nietzsche would have called the despisers of the body. But we also believe that some of the best aspects of us are always reaching upward, toward something better, toward truth and beauty and excellence, toward something more ideal, something higher, something more like the sun. We believe that the gods of men have very often been idealized versions of men themselves, perfected versions of the many different roles and aspects of manhood. Now, there are many roles and many aspects, but we're going to begin with three basic god archetypes that we find over and over again throughout history. And those are the Father, the Striker, and the Lord of the Earth. Each one of these different god archetypes, as an agent of order, contends with a different kind of chaos. The Father. The Father is most like the sun, an ordering force in the world. He contends with conceptual chaos, confusion. He creates order. He makes rules and draws lines. A father in the sky, a father beyond all fathers, is a recurring theme in mythologies and religions of the world. The Sky Father often has to overcome some kind of physical chaos to become the ruling force, so he is often portrayed as an ascended warrior, an ascended striker. The Striker. The Striker is the warrior and hero beyond all warriors and heroes. The Striker is the perfect ideal of what it means to be a warrior or hero. The Striker is the champion of order, who defends and expands the perimeter of order that the Father or a collective of strikers established. It is the Striker's role to contend with physical chaos. His virtues are the first virtues of men, the virtues of the perimeter: strength, courage, mastery, and honor. The Lord of the Earth. The Lord of the Earth perpetuates order. The Lord of the Earth manages and shapes the material and social chaos of everyday life to perpetuate life and order and promote prosperity. He is an intermediary between earth and sky who brings natural and human resources into the harmonious service of the Father's cosmic order and human flourishing. The Lord of the Earth is a patron of the tribe and the people, representing the spirit of the working man, from shepherds and stock breeders to farmers, artisans, and merchants. He represents all of the work that must be done to satisfy our basic animal needs and wants, and in exceeding them, bring joy into the world around us.
Question: do you really think these gods are real? Answer: it doesn't matter.
Solar Idealism doesn't take a firm stance on whether or not the Father, the Striker, or the Lord of the Earth exist as entities in some kind of supernatural or anthropomorphic sense. Maybe they are just forces of nature. Maybe they are part of a bigger thing. Maybe they're just ideas or concepts, metaphors. Or maybe there are a lot of very real gods in the world, and I've compressed them into three, and they're all kind of mad about it. I believe that it is unnecessary to insist that we know things which are almost impossible to know, things that nobody knows. There are so many guys in the world who play all kinds of word games to try and convince themselves and convince other people that they know things that they can't possibly know. Solar Idealism skips over all that. We let each man establish his own relationship with that question. Solar Idealism approaches the God archetypes as conceptual ideals, idealized versions of aspects of ourselves or personifications of purposeful excellence. And while they've been given many names and shapes and powers over the years, one thing of which we can be certain is that these ideals have existed in some form in the minds of men for all of human history. Maybe that's about as real as it gets.
Hierarchy, divine order.
Solar Idealists believe that men across time and space are united by their appreciation for excellence. I believe that there are some simple transcendent values which men have always shared. And while their interpretation of certain abstract concepts isn't going to differ, I believe that men naturally want to live in an ordered, hierarchical world in which things are measured against ideals. A world of good, better, and best, and bad, worse, and the worst. The word hierarchy actually comes from roots that mean holy or divine, priest, and rule. So essentially, holy order. We believe that there are some simple, holy positives, value statements that most men would naturally agree are obviously correct. Most men would agree that light is better than darkness, that order is better than chaos, that truth is better than lies, that health and vitality are better than sickness, that beauty is better than ugliness, that strength is better than weakness, that courage is better than cowardice, that competence is better than incompetence, that fortitude is better than fragility, that emotional control is better than hysteria, that independence is better than dependence, and self-determination is better than servility. Value statements like that sound like common sense, and they should. But our age is an age of confusion. There are so many subversive and manipulative voices in the world today, along with a lot of opportunistic contrarian marketers who invert these holy positives every day for their own ends. This is the true Satanism, the work of the dragon. To say that ugliness is better than beauty, that weakness is better than strength, that lies are better than the truth, that things like courage and health, and men and women need to be redefined with a nod to the father and the striker. We are willing to draw lines, to say no to these inversions, and yes, to our holy positives, to the timeless values of men.
Conclusion. Find out more.
So that wraps up my introduction to Solar Idealism. If you're interested in learning more, check out my book, Fire in the Dark. I think Solar Idealism is a strong idea, and that's why I'm putting time and energy into it. I think it meets a lot of us where we are. It meets me where I am, in terms of balancing a rational assessment of the world as I see it, and also understanding the need for myth and idealism and beauty in life. And so I think there's a lot there, and there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of potential for growing and developing this culture. And we've been doing that with my men's group, the Order of Fire. It's been around for just about a year now, and it's been going great. We read different books and discuss them, and we have all kinds of programs to make each other better. There's a little accountability there as well, but there's also a real focus on creating culture. We have a lot of musicians, and you've seen some of the projects that I've put up recently, including the Invocation of the Storm video, which was created with a member of the Order of Fire. So we're looking to create culture and do things like that, things that are positive instead of just kind of mocking culture the way a lot of people do, and it's really not productive at all. So look into our YouTube channel, listen to some of our podcasts, read Fire in the Dark. Consider applying to join the Order of Fire when we have applications open. We don't open them all the time, but we will be doing it shortly here, and periodically throughout the year. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I guess like and subscribe, that's what they say, right? And until then, stay solar.